Multiplying leaders in churches is necessary to reach a multitude. But how exactly do we support these multiplying networks and leaders? In this video, we'll examine some key principles related to the structure that supports a multiplying move of God. When we look around the world at multiplying movements, we see a few key characteristics that all movements have in common in relation to their structure. Every network typically has a way that they're assessing their church's health and making sure that every church is continuing to grow in maturity, but also striving to plant the next church and continuing to push forward. We also notice that every multiplying movement has some form of leadership development, some structure for raising up leaders who will raise up the next group of leaders who will raise up the next group of leaders. And all of these multiplying movements have a posture of humility as they cross-pollinate with other networks, other movements, to continue to learn best practices for reaching the lost and planting healthy, reproducing churches. Typically, there's rhythms in these movements, something like daily time with Jesus, weekly house church, monthly leadership meetings, and quarterly network gatherings. We've explored in other videos ways that we go about doing this. In our networks, we've looked at the church circle and the generational mapping to ensure that our churches are maturing and multiplying. We've looked at the 139 and 2 meeting overlap as a way to think about how do we raise up leaders who will raise up other leaders. And finally, we've talked a lot about cross-pollinating with other leaders in different settings to make sure that we're continuing to stay humble and continuing to refine our practices to be more and more in line with what we see in the New Testament. This structure is not a formula for a movement, but it does show key components and key principles that we need to keep in mind as we think about how to support the disciples, leaders, and churches that God has given us influence with. So when you think about your own life, what are the areas that you and the others that you're serving alongside need to grow in? Do you need to continue to build out your network of multiplying churches? Or do you need to think through your leadership development structures and processes? Or do you need to get further exposure to other multiplying networks so that you can learn more best practices? Or maybe you need to think through what are the rhythms of your own life and your network. So take some time now and think about what is it that God is pressing on your heart to continue to develop so that you can reach more people with the good news of Jesus Christ.